Welcome to the Growth Lab, a trusted space for parents navigating their child's developmental journey. I'm Luba Patlak, a speech-language pathologist, myofunction therapist, child and family advocate, and a mom of three. For the last 15 years, I've worked with more than 150,000 children and their families, helping parents understand what they're seeing, what it means, and how to move forward with confidence. This podcast is for parents who want clear, credible guidance when information feels overwhelming or decisions feel heavy. Here, we break down speech, feeding, breathing, learning differences, attention, IEPs, and more in practical, easy to understand ways alongside trusted experts. My goal is simple, and it's to help you feel informed, supported, and confident as you advocate for your child. You're in the right place, so let's begin. Today, we have an amazing episode, The Truth About Late Talkers. What every parent needs to know about speech delays, executive functioning, confidence, and when to take action. One of the most common questions I get as a speech-language pathologist and the founder of Kinology is, Luba, should I be worried that my child isn't talking yet? And honestly, sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes children are late bloomers. But sometimes what looks like a harmless delay is actually the first visible sign that a child is struggling in ways we cannot yet see. So today, we're going to talk about the truth about late talkers. Not the scary version or the social media version, but the real version from a speech pathologist and a mama. We'll discuss when parents should pay attention, what executive functioning has to do with language development, why speech delays affect much more than words, and how communication impacts confidence, behavior, learning, and relationships. Are you worried that your child is not speaking yet or not repeating words? Are they a late talker? So what is a late talker? A late talker is generally a child between 18 and 36 months who understands language fairly well, but isn't using as many words as expected. Parents often hear, he's just like his uncle. Boys talk later. She'll talk when she's ready. Don't worry. And while some children absolutely catch up naturally, many don't. And the challenge is that we don't know which child is going to catch up and which child will continue falling behind. And that's why paying attention matters. So the biggest myth about late talkers is as long as they understand everything, they're fine. Well, understanding language is wonderful, but communication, the output, is not just understanding. Communication is expressing, making requests or questioning something, negotiating, problem solving, sharing ideas, building relationships, and practicing these skills starts at a very young age. A child who can't effectively communicate often begins finding other ways to get their needs met. And we don't want people to foundationally develop other ways as their communication skills. Usually, the other ways that the child is developing are compensatory strategies, just to get them by, like grunting or pointing, because they can't express themselves. But what happens when they go to school or daycare and they need to tell you about what happened or what they didn't like or that they met someone new or they learned something new, but they can't do it? That's a late talker. A lot of people are wondering why speech delays do turn into behavioral challenges. But imagine that you're 2 years old, you know exactly what you want, you know you're hungry, and you know you want your blue cup, and you know you want mommy, and you know your brother took your toy. But nobody can understand you. So what happens? You're frustrated, the frustration's building up, it causes a tantrum, it causes throwing, it causes crying, and it causes meltdowns. All of those things I just named are behaviors. Those categories of behaviors are happening because your child is upset. They want to be understood, and they are not being understood. But they're being labeled bad and having bad behavior. And, you know, unfortunately, it's really important to have a strong behavior team to be able to differentiate the things that I'm telling you about. And a lot of times, families will bring their child in for just a communication problem, but it turns out they do have a behavior problem. The things work hand in hand, unfortunately, because this is human nature. If something's not going your way, somebody's not understanding you, but you know what you want to say, how do you keep it together? And imagine doing that when you're 2 or 3. That's tough. It's really tough. It's tough when you're in your 30s. Your child is not bad, but their communication is breaking down. And behavior is communication. And many of the children I see don't actually have a behavior problem, like I said. What they have is a communication problem. And it started because they were a late talker. So what is the connection to executive functioning here? Well, this is the piece almost nobody talks about. Language and executive function are deeply connected. Executive function refers to the brain skills that help us pay attention, solve things, control impulses, remember information that they're learning, follow directions, plan and organize, and manage their emotions. And these skills begin developing long before kindergarten. And language acts like operating systems, helping those skills grow. So for example, when a child talks themselves through a problem, so first I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that, and wait, or, oh, it's my turn, they're actually building these executive functioning skills. And researchers call this self-directed speech. They're working through functions, executing the functions themselves. Eventually, that speech becomes internal. Adults do this all day, every day. You're probably like, what do you mean I do this? Right. But as a child, it is so crucial to develop those skills, because if you don't, you're going to run into several types of delays. We do these things silently. Children need to first learn to regulate themselves through language so that they can hear themselves work through these executive skills and function properly. I hope you learned something there. So what happens when language is delayed is that we often see a ripple effect. So if there's difficulty following multi-step directions, like stand up and bring me the book, that's 2 directions, there will be difficulty with transitions and with waiting, like waiting your turn. Difficulty solving conflicts, difficulty understanding social situations because they don't know when it's their turn or when they're supposed to answer somebody. They have a dysfunction there. And why is this happening? Because language is one of the tools the brain uses to organize itself, because you talk through the steps. So there is an important point here, and that doesn't mean every late talker has executive functioning challenges, but it does mean communication is influencing far more than their speech. But this is where my heart breaks, because parents often focus so much on words, but children are experiencing something much deeper. They're missing confidence. And imagine entering a room where everybody understands each other and they're talking and laughing. Everybody understands everybody, except they don't understand you. And you want to so badly participate. You want to belong. You want to share your ideas, but it's hard for you. And over time, children begin withdrawing because they have to be quiet. Nobody understands them, or they don't know what to say, or it doesn't turn on that, oh, I want to share my information, or here's how I would organize this or that. Some kids get really quiet, or some are really silly and they make jokes. Some become aggressive. That's the type of behavior that comes out. And some let other people speak for them. This is bad. And some just simply stop trying. Taking a quick break from the episode to share something close to my heart. I wrote a children's book and it's out now. It's called Bobo Wears a Bowtie, and it's about a little boy learning that growth doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be brave. If you're raising a child who's working hard, trying new things, or sometimes feeling unsure of themselves, this book was made for your family. Grab your copy today at bobowearsabowtie.com. That's BOBO wearsabowtie.com. All right, back to the episode. And the longer communication remains difficult, the more opportunities children will miss in practicing being successful communicators and having their own voice. I speak so much about confidence because I wrote an incredible book called Bobo Wears a Bowtie, and it's really about turning on a positive mindset and mentality in children. The little bear in the story clips on his bow tie, essentially turning on his mindset. And if there's ever anything he runs into that he feels he cannot achieve, utilizing the mindset, the positive feelings, and clipping on his bow tie allows him to accomplish those things, allows him to work through the difficult moments, allows him to find confidence, find his voice. And it's crucial in uncovering a late talker, because a lot of babies you'll hear them whispering to themselves in their crib. What they're doing is they're building confidence in what they're going to say. They're practicing words and sounds. And it's not something that comes naturally to everybody. That's why there's speech therapy. That's why there are different types of educators and therapists. But it's so important to recognize when a child really needs to gain that confidence. I've worked with children who were incredibly bright and funny, warm, creative, super smart. But because they couldn't clearly express themselves, other people underestimated them. Teachers misunderstood them. Peers overlooked them. And eventually they started questioning themselves. And that's why communication is not just about talking. It's about identity and confidence, and it's about feeling heard. So when should parents start to pay attention? Always! But no, seriously. Here are some red flags that I would recommend taking a look at. If by 12 months your child is not consistently babbling, has limited gestures, and little response to name, this is a red flag and a concern. You should schedule an evaluation. By 18 months, so a little older, if they have fewer than 10 to 20 words, they have difficulty imitating sounds, and are using limited pointing, the child should be able to communicate with you and fluidly say, oh, I see that. I want to go there. Mom, where's my shoes? By 24 months, that's 2 years old, if a child has fewer than 50 words, they're not combining words. So you're talking 2-3 word utterances. By 2 years old, they should be able to have that. And I say that so lightly, should. I hate saying should because norms are different, but by 2 years old, you do want to see an active communicator, even in the slightest ways. Their speech won't be perfect, but they're actively trying to communicate. And if at 24 months they're still quite difficult to understand, you do want to figure out why. And of course, by 3 years old, if strangers understand less than half of your child's speech, this is a huge red flag. If your child has difficulty answering simple questions, where's mom? This is not an answer. They should say to you, oh, I'm not sure. I haven't seen her. 3 years old is an age where sentences should be coming together. And if at 3 they're still quite frustrated around communication, that is a really big red flag. You want to look into what's going on, and it's a little bit deeper now than the communication. Is there something additional happening? Is there a diagnosis we've missed? Just to really understand your child. When is there a true delay versus a little push needed? And this is the $1 million question, because sometimes children do need a little nudge, more interaction, less screen time, more reading, more opportunities to communicate, social interaction, going out to the park, spending time at an activity with friends that they see all the time, more parent coaching. Maybe the parents are too quiet or too busy, or they're with a foreign grandparent who isn't communicating in the same language and the child is not picking up the skills that they need. Sometimes those things are enough to help the child along. But here's what I tell parents. If your intuition is telling you that something feels off, listen. You don't need to prove that your child has a problem before asking questions. You don't need to wait until they're struggling. You don't need to earn the right to be concerned. You're their parent. That's enough of a right. And you're not making things up. This is how you feel. This is your child. One thing I do want parents to understand is that early intervention matters. Getting an evaluation doesn't mean your child has a lifelong issue. It means you're gathering information about what's going on with them. That's it. An evaluation gives you data. Data. I always talk about data, but it is something so important to your child's life and your own. The earlier that we're able to support communication, the easier it will be for the brain to build those pathways and progress. If you build a house without a stable foundation, your house will fall down. If you are raising a child without proper communication skills and behavioral regulation skills, your child will fall apart. Point blank. Here's another great analogy. If your child needs glasses, you wouldn't wait 3 years hoping their vision is going to improve, right? You'd give them the support they need now, right away, because you want them to see. Well, communication is no different. If you see a problem, a gap, a lack, they're falling behind, don't wait. Go and get help today. The most important thing that I want parents to know is that if your child is a late talker, you don't need to blame yourself. This is not something that you did or didn't do. It's not your fault. And it's not your child's fault either. Children develop differently, but paying attention to how they're developing and what their needs are is a true act of love. The goal is not perfection. I say it all the time. But the goal is giving your children the tools that they need to connect with the world around them, to succeed as they grow, to build the foundation today for tomorrow. And communication is one of the most powerful tools they will ever have. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with any other parent that could use it. Because so many families are sitting at home wondering whether they should trust their gut. And my message is simple. Pay attention, ask questions, seek support when needed, and remember, early support doesn't create problems. It prevents them. If you're looking for a community of parents who are navigating speech development, behavior, confidence, advocacy, executive functioning, school struggles, IEPs, and everything in between, I'd love to invite you to join us inside the Parent Pathway. This is the community I wish every parent would join. You'll gain access to workshops, resources, expert guidance, and most importantly, a group of parents who understand exactly what you're going through. Parenting was never meant to be done alone. Visit my website, lubapatlak.com, to learn more. There is a free trial when you join the membership, and this is an incredible parent community to become a part of. It is helping families raise confident, capable children every single day. I'm Luba Patlak, and thank you so much for spending this time with me today on the Growth Lab podcast. Until next time, keep trusting your instincts, keep showing up for your children, and remember, you know your child better than anyone else. Thanks so much for joining me here at the Growth Lab podcast. I really hope this episode was helpful. If it was, stick around for more episodes by subscribing to the podcast wherever you're listening. And if you know a fellow parent that could use this episode, share it with them. Follow me on Instagram at Luba Patlak. That's LUBAPATLAKH for daily advice and resources to keep you informed between episodes. See you next time.